We're watching the situation closely in Yemen today. A ceasefire went into effect at midnight local time in a crucial port city. This is video, though, of the fighting in the days leading up to the truce today, as the warring sides tried to make some last-minute gains. The ceasefire aimed at cooling nearly 4 years of civil war and averting an even greater humanitarian crisis. Briar Stewart is tracking the developments from our bureau in London today and has the latest on what's happening with this ceasefire. Good morning, Briar.
Well, it appears so far, Heather, that the ceasefire is largely holding. I say largely because there have been some reports that early in the morning between 1 and 2 a.m. that there was some shelling. But since then, officials say things have quieted down and they're pretty hopeful. Now, this ceasefire was brokered by the UN last week in Sweden, and it involved leaders from the Saudi-backed government forces as well as leaders from the Houthi rebels, which have, of course, been linked to Iran. Now, originally, this truce was supposed to come into effect right away, so immediately on Thursday. But that didn't happen because fighting continued. So instead, they pushed it back to midnight Tuesday, and it appears to be going well so far. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, had given an interview this morning to the BBC, and he said he was really hopeful that the ceasefire would hold because, you had both warring parties agree to it, and he really said that there is a recognition that so much of the country is really on the brink of famine.
The United Nations trying to avoid a full-scale war. So tell us about the city itself and why it is so critical, not just to the country, but as to the strategy for stopping the hostilities and the fighting.
Well, exactly. I mean, the city where the ceasefire is and where we're talking about, it's called Hodeida, and it's on the coast of the Red Sea. So it's very strategic in the fact that it's a port city, and about 70% of all goods go through there, including humanitarian aid. And that's what's so crucial, because right now, 8 million people in Yemen rely on food aid. And what the UN has said is that if fighting does continue by next year, 14 million people will rely on food aid. Well, that's about half of Yemen's population. So it just gives you a sense of the scale of this humanitarian disaster. So what the UN is hoping is not only will the ceasefire hold, but the next step in all of this is to then go in and withdraw forces from the area. And what they'd really like to do is to secure a road leading out of Hodeida up to the northeast to a city called Sana'a. And what they're hoping is that they'll be able to clear that road of fighting and that food aid will be able to move up to the people who desperately need it.
Briar, thank you very much. Briar Stewart with that out of London this morning.